Mind Gap Podcast.
Everybody, welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
I'm Justin. And Doug, have you watched any good movies lately?
Have I watched any good movies lately?
Can I rephrase that question? Have you watched any movies lately?
I have watched movies. I've watched a lot of movies lately.
Have you watched any movie that by its pure nature is defined as a movie, and that's where it ends?
Yeah. I have. Yeah, and for everyone who's on the pins and needles, like, what movie could this possibly be? We referenced it years ago.
We did.
Probably in 2017, probably again in 2018, maybe again in 2019. And before we go down this road, I want to say shout out to Haig. This one's for you, buddy. Thank you for buying me this movie.
Before we go down this road, I actually have a special message for you.
Oh, shit.
Hey guys, a little bird, and by little bird I mean Doug, told me that he finally watched the movie I got him because I knew he just wanted to watch it, Rampage with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Now, I'm going to put a disclaimer in here because I know Doug has selective memories. So if we ever try to say that I said this was a good movie, that is never what I said. I said it was an entertaining movie, and I felt that Doug was being overly critical, having never even seen the movie when he heard it came out. So I just want to set that expectation. We can always go back to that episode of Mind Gap if you want to hear him rant about it, or actually probably just rant about it anyway. So I'm curious, Doug, what you really thought of the movie. Again, I would never say it's a good movie. I will say it was entertaining. Take care, guys.
There you go. From the man, the myth, the legend, the purchaser of that movie.
Wow. First of all, Haig, thank you for sending it over. You sound great, man. This is a good recording. Well done, sir. And he's absolutely right. Thank you for the disclaimer. I don't think I would have gone down that road of being like, Haig said it was a good movie. Haig, give me a little more credit than that, all right? I know what you're saying. You're saying you're a firm believer of just in pure entertainment, right? You're not looking for, you never said it's an Oscar-winning movie. I understand
the year it came out, Haig ran a very, very blistering social media campaign when it got snubbed at the Oscars.
He was picketing, He was just like, it put the writer strike to shame, the campaign he went on. He was just like...
You should have seen the signs.
Yeah.
You want to talk about inappropriate.
He's like, Rampage. He's like, what? Are you, sir? Are you going on a rampage? Like, no, the movie, Rampage, with a big monkey in it. I'm sorry, ape. The white ape.
Do they make that distinction in the film?
I mean,
tell me that's a running gag or something.
Well, it was in the Planet of the Apes movies that I watched. Where they're like, this monkey, they're apes. They're different than monkeys. They're different. So yes, this long ago, I found out they were making this movie Rampage based on the hit classic arcade game Rampage. And I was like, I don't know, man, that's weird source material to go to be like, we need to make a movie based on this game where you can be one of 3 different creatures that basically wrecks the shit out of cities. Like,
right.
And someone was like, I got an idea to make a movie starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Let's do this. And I was just like, I was on my argument was like, why? Just why are we doing this, right? Because you could argue that, Pirates of the Caribbean, when they announced that, I'm like, what? They're making a movie based on a ride?
Right.
What are we doing? And it's solid movie. I mean, they got progressively worse, but that first one's solid,
Solid. Barbie,
haven't seen it, but boy, it's made over $1 billion. It's based on a toy, right? People are going crazy for it. It's possible to take something. I'm always going to be a little suspicious when the premise is like a product like that.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. You should be suspicious.
I'm like, huh?
Because we've been raised in a capitalist society, Doug.
Right. If you're like, oh, this is based on a book. This is based on, I don't know, based on a true story or whatever, like, okay, that has some sort of elements in it already. But if you're like, here's this arcade game, and we're going to make a movie based on this arcade game, like, there's no story to that game.
Right.
It's just
literally no story.
Put in a quarter, choose your monster, and go fuck shit up. Like, that was basically how it went. So, I mean, who's to say? You can make something out of it, I suppose. But so I was railing on this movie for a long time. Didn't plan on seeing it. Didn't want to see it. And Haig, being the very clever guy that he is, he bought that movie for me and sent it over. And I graciously accepted. I remember him saying he was surprised that I accepted it. I was like, of course I did. You spent money on a bit. I'm going to accept the money for the bit. Like, that's legit. Like, and then for years, this movie has sat in my library, and we would scroll past it, and Natalie's like, Dad, what movie is that? And Mom would be like, that's Dad's movie. And I'm like, God damn it, don't say it's my movie. She's like, well, whose movie is it? Because it's not mine. I'm like, that's fair. It's not. And I was like, I will watch it at some point. I will watch it. And for whatever reason, For a little while, the plan was, before the pandemic happened and before I moved away, the plan was that you and I were going to take some time, watch that, and then record an episode live together. That was originally, we were like, that's going to be the content right there. Yeah. Unfortunately, we never got around to that because we procrastinate. I think in your case, fortunately, we never got around to that.
Oh, okay. So, little sneak peek of the review.
Big surprise, gang! It's coming. But we had a movie night with the family, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's put this on. We'll see if Natalie's here. And Natalie asked me multiple times. She's like, Dad, is this movie appropriate for me? And I'm like, I don't know. Probably. I was like, hey, you've watched Avengers. You've watched 2 of the Planet of the Apes movies. Yeah. I was like, you've watched plenty of stuff, that some people would be like, that's kind of on the cusp. I'm like, I think this should fit in there. I'm like, it's not R. I know that much. So
you watched Terrifier 2?
Terrifier 2.
Totally fine with that one.
You've watched, what was it? Nymphomaniac or whatever?
Right. You watched The Human Centipede?
Yeah, right. We've watched Saw.
Right.
Saw 2. Saw 3.
Please keep going.
Spiral. Jaws 4, but not the other ones, just Jaws 4.
Just Jaws 4. Godfather 3.
We like to start at the end and work our way back. We're non-traditional when it comes to trilogies.
We've watched Jason in Space.
Jason in Space. We've watched Halloween Ends, You're like, wait, what?
And that was the tale of Michael Myers.
I don't get it. Nobody does. Some people have seen all of this and they don't get it. They don't get any of it. Yeah, they don't understand any of it.
Anyway, so finally the time came. You said, fuck it, we're putting this on.
Yeah, Jill's like, cool, I'm going to put an audiobook on and I'll be over here. I had absolutely no interest in watching it. Right off the top, right off the bat, I'll say it Justin's right. It is a movie. It is a movie. It is technically a movie. And I felt like my interest started out strong. One of the things I texted Haig that I was watching it, he goes, hey, keep an open mind. I was like,
I love that.
I was like, listen, I get why you would say that. I do. Based on the shit that I've said. Like, I was going in with no expectations. I was just like, whatever, we're going to watch this film. We're going to have a good time. And it started out like, cool, I'm enjoying it. And then it's just like, there's just a slippery slope of my interest as time went on, to the point where I was just like, man, I don't even know if I remember some of the details about this movie. It is so forgettable and whatnot. Yeah. So
did Natalie like it? Is the first question I want to start with.
I think she did. I don't think it's going to be a core memory for her for watching this movie with me. She, was watching it and whatnot, and I think she had a good time. Yeah. So I picked it because I'm like, hey, we watched the first 2 Planet of the Apes movies. She loves Godzilla, shit like that. I'm like, this seems right up her alley.
It's right in there. Yeah.
I was like, this seems like it could be interesting. The challenge with her is like something would happen. She's like, oh, wow. And then literally a minute later, something happened because of that thing that happened. She's like, wow, why is this happening? I'm like, you literally just saw why this is happening.
So even Natalie was checking out of this movie.
No, she's just 7 years old, and she has a hard time following facts sometimes. And it's just
Okay, fair enough.
I'm like, literally just happened, child. Yeah. Literally just happened. So the premise of this film is that there are these canisters of, which is actually interesting because the time when this movie came out, we were really talking a lot about CRISPR and gene editing.
Ah, yes.
And
yes,
that's what this
I
movie
forgot
is,
about that.
That's what this movie is based on. It's based on the idea that this corporation, of course it's a corporation, has invested in finding a way to use this CRISPR gene editing technology to create animals that have mix of a whole bunch of different genes.
Okay.
And they're testing it in space because...
Of course.
The world determined that the CRISPR gene is considered basically like an illegal weapon, a weapon of mass destruction, so they can't do it. So they're like, well, we'll test in space where there's no jurisdiction.
Naturally.
Things go awry. Things go wrong. They're testing on a rat who grows really big and just absolutely decimates the space station. But the research gets out and lands in 3 different spots that just so happen to be, I think, in America. At least North America, I believe.
It so much.
Because it's San Diego, it's the Everglades, and I think where the wolf was maybe Canada at the most northern. So all 3 of them were right in North America, you know?
Okay.
And these things land and they emit a green gas, and the animals that breathe it in all of a sudden begin to grow at an alarming rate. And they start to, some of them exhibit different attributes based on what they breathed in. Oddly enough, one of the creatures just got bigger. So like what I was referencing before is like Natalie watched this wolf inhale this green gas. And then like a minute later, it's like, oh my God, this entire pack of wolves has been murdered. She's like, whoa, who did that? And I'm like, probably the wolf. Well, why? What happened? It's like, you just saw it inhale the gas. Like,
Let's use context clues here. Yeah.
Right? Same thing like this gorilla, this albino gorilla breathes it in and then he's bigger. It's like, what happened? Why did he get so big? I'm like, you just saw him breathe in the gas, kid. He breathed in the gas.
Protein.
Yeah, protein.
Natalie, protein. And he does not skip chest day.
That's right. So The Rock is an animal enthusiast who is looking after the gorillas encampment enclosure at the San Diego Zoo.
He's just an animal enthusiast. He's not even a scientist.
He doesn't like humans. That's an ongoing thing. He's like, he doesn't like humans.
Got it. Done.
He prefers to hang out with animals because humans are gross.
I don't disagree with that point, but
yeah,
yes.
It's very good. So he's like, he knows he signs with George, the gorilla. You know, they can talk. There's actually some pretty funny banter between those two. Like, they carry on. Like, the gorilla understands sarcasm, which I'm like, that's where I checked out. I was like, fuck you. Gorillas don't know sarcasm.
I can accept mutant rats in space. I will not accept sarcasm in apes.
Gorillas? Do it because he just starts flipping the bird.
Yeah.
Like, it's great. You know, it's very, very funny. No, actually, I found that to be very entertaining. Like, there's like a joke in the beginning, and then like they do a callback at the end. I'm like, that's pretty good. That's well done. Yeah. So basically, we follow as we learn that there's this evil corporation. One of my hang-ups with it is just like the story is pretty rough. It's like pretty loose. It plays pretty rough and loose, and the villains are just hilariously villains.
Are they just villains?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, we're making this to make money.
Marvelous.
Money, which, let's face it, that's what corporations do. All right, so if anything,
well,
that is true.
That's grounded in reality, Doug.
But I prefer a villain I can at least, have some sort of empathy for, or at least understand their point of view. They're like, we're evil corporation people, brother and sister. Hee hee hee. Now we'll make sure that blah blah blah. I was like, all right, whatever. So essentially, there's a gorilla, a wolf, and an alligator that all get infected with this thing. Now, the alligator we don't hear from for 85% of the film.
I love it. So that's obviously the smoking gun. That's the one that comes comes in right at the end.
We see it get infected, and then at one point there's a reference to it, and we kind of see it, kind of, and then it doesn't show up again until like the middle of the third act when the big fight's going down in Chicago. And it's like, cool. I kind of feel like I didn't get to know this creature. It bums me out. It's just like, oh, by the way, this thing just showed up. And it's like, cool. And we watch as the wolf just ravages, a special ops team that was sent there to capture it and kill it. And then, the gorilla is captured by the government. It's taken, and then they turn on a radio signal, which makes the animals crazy with rage, and they're trying to get to Chicago, where at the top of the Willis Towers, where the signal's coming from, and then they're rampaging through the streets of Chicago, trying to get to this signal.
Did they use the name of the film? Did they say it?
Here's a weird little Easter egg. In the office, of these co-CEOs, brother and sister, as they're talking, in the background, there's a Rampage arcade game.
You're kidding me.
No. It was such a weird sort of like, hey, you know what this is based on? That thing back there. And they call like the Rampage virus or whatever. It's called the Rampage project. I'm like, you named it after the fucking arcade game that's in your office? That's lazy. I knew a guy in college, whenever we would play games and he had to come up with a screen name, he would literally look around his desk and be like, he'd be like, pen bottle. Like he would just, or he'd find like some absurd, like he'd be like, Dell. Yeah. I'm Dell. Like just, that's what I felt like they were doing. Like, what are we going to name this project? Rampage. Right. It's Rampage. Rampage. I'm like, you're telling me that these asshats are in their office playing Rampage? Right. No, doubt it. Highly doubt it. It was somehow, we also learned that The Rock's character is also some sort of badass, I don't know, military guy. I guess to some degree.
When you start a movie with The Rock, that is a given.
Yeah.
You assume that until told otherwise.
Which, by the way, Rock was very enjoyable to watch in this movie.
He's enjoyable, and I don't know that I've seen a movie that I've not enjoyed him in.
He's very fun. He's very fun to watch in that movie. He's great. Whatever. Yeah. It's fine. The action was fine. The guy who plays Negan in The Walking Dead,
Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah, that's his name. Heir to the Jimmy Dean sausage.
That's Empire, how that works.
And Morgan. The law firm, I think is what it is, Yep.
Accident. It's the law firm that represents the Jimmy Dean sausage factory.
That's exactly what it is, because Morgan, you get in an accident, they're there for you. They're going to take care of you, Largest law firm in the nation.
Get back on the exit. Get back on the on-ramp, Doug.
That's right. Get back on it. He plays this guy, like it's so weird. He's like, what is it? An other agency government guy. You never figure out which agency he works for.
Sure, yeah.
But he has a real Texas drawl, and he has like a nickel-plated gun that he wears like in the front, like a holster, like a cowboy. And they keep calling him cowboy. He's like, I'm tired of your cowboy ways. He's like, hey man, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm like, and I never see him use his gun, but he's just got it in the holster in the front, and he's just like very cool. It's like, whatever, I'm like, I don't know. This is very strange.
I feel like I need to see this movie now. You're selling it to me.
I don't know if you need to, but you can. It's a movie. It's out there.
I feel like I will start to wither away and die if I don't see this movie, Doug.
Yeah, there's just certain things that, when things start kind of going off the rails for me, I start getting nitpicky with stuff. Like, for example, that I just start noticing, I'm like, why is this guy even allowed in the military area? Like, he's with some other government agency. Right. He's like, I'm an OGA, other government agency.
He's got top clearance.
But, like, no one addresses where he's just, I'm like, who? He doesn't have a team with him. Right. It's just him. Right. And he's just, like, navigating around doing stuff like that, and I don't know, it's just, and then there's a part where The Rock gets shot like right in the stomach, but then you're like, oh my god, he got shot, but then he just like shows up a few minutes later. He's like, whew, good thing it wasn't bad. And then he's just like running around like no big deal. I'm like, dude, you got shot in the stomach, man. Like he's like,
Luckily,
nah, it's just a little in the side. I'm like, what? No,
Luckily,
even if it was an in and
that
out.
bullet out.
Even if it was an in and out, I'm like, you're going to be having, whatever. Yeah. It's like, and then these monsters are just like attacking the city. The military's there. They're shooting shit at them and nothing hurts them. And then in this big epic moment, he's able to turn the gorilla, turn off the aggression. And he and the gorilla start going toe to toe with these other monsters. And what does The Rock do? He gets like, I don't know, a fucking grenade launcher. He starts like shooting it at them. Yeah. I'm like, dude, the military was just out here like firing all sorts of shit at these things. Doesn't do anything. And guess what? His grenades don't do anything, Oh
no.
Right? I don't know. I understand. It's like, what are you going to do? Nothing? It's like in Saving Private Ryan when Tom Hanks' character is like laying against the wall at the end. He's just like taking his pistol, shooting at the tanks. He's like, fuck you. I'm going to do what I can.
I'm going to go out doing something. Yeah.
But like, it's this giant gorilla and a tiny little guy, fighting these giant monsters. And he's like, all right, let's do this. Boom. Boom. I'm like, it's not going to hurt him, man. Like, it's not going to do anything. It's just, and it kind of reminded me of like Transformers in a sense where at some point I'm like, this action needs to stop. This is getting exhausting. This, oh my God, the gorilla's about to die. Oh, wait. The Rock got the thing's attention. Oh no, the Rock's about to die. Oh, the gorilla, he's in it now and he's fighting and he saved his life. And no, the gorilla's in danger again. But the Rock got his attention. I'm like, okay, all right. Make it stop. Let it end, please. This would be great. So I would say all in all, it is a movie. To Haig's credit, I mean, it kind of entertained me. Okay. The plot is pretty, it's not the worst plot I've ever heard of, or it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's a solid, C-.
Okay, I was gonna say if you could rate it. I didn't know what scale we were going on, but
I'm not running back to watch it again anytime soon.
Sure,
that's a big thing for me, like rewatchability. I'm like, I don't know, maybe in the distant future, if now he's like, hey Dad, for movie night, can we watch this again? I'm like, yeah, sure. I've probably forgotten most of it, so why not? Like, let's turn that back on, and just, Have you watched a movie? There was a movie I watched recently that I can't remember what it was, but I hadn't seen it in a while. It was the Mission Impossible movies.
I've never gone through those, and I literally about a month ago started. I watched one, and I'm almost done with two. I'm taking my time, but yeah.
I haven't bothered with two. Never have, never will. I'm like,
I'm one of those people. I got OCD in the sense that like if there's if there's like 10, I've got to watch them in order. I have to do it. I can't skip one.
If there's one universal truth I've heard from everyone is that 2 is skippable and should be skipped. So.
Well, Haig said it didn't really kick in until 4. Like he's like, that's when like the Mission Impossible, it's when it got stepped away from campy and got like good action.
I'd argue the third one's pretty solid. That's really? Okay. J.J. Abrams directed that one, and that one's pretty good.
Okay.
And I just recently rewatched the first one, loved the first one, so good. And then I was like, I guess I'll watch. I was like, I think I've seen the third one.
Yeah.
Didn't remember much about it. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is fun. I was like, I don't remember how this ends. Like, completely forgot most of it, which made the rewatch enjoyable. Then I'm like, I guess I'll watch the fourth one. And I realized I'm like, oh, fuck, I've seen the fourth one. But I don't remember watching it because I'm like, oh, shit, this is the... Oh, I thought this was the... Okay. I have seen this. Don't remember jack shit about it. So... Yeah.
I've had that happen. I've had that happen before for sure. Yeah, and it's because then you're. I was convinced. I can't remember what it was, but I remember watching it. And I was convinced. I'm like, I haven't seen this though. I was like, I know I haven't seen it, but I was calling scenes that were coming up, and it obviously had seen it, but could not. I couldn't convince myself that I had seen it, even though I obviously had. It was still in my mind. I'm like, I know I haven't seen this.
Yeah.
When did I see it? I have no memory of this.
Those are enjoyable, those movies, Mission Impossible ones, but it also gets to the point where I'm like,
okay. A little formulaic.
I'm just like,
yeah.
Where are you getting all these gadgets, guys? where you just have this readily available, just to be like, bam, because they will go to the effort to show you like, oh, we're gonna make a fake face, and this is what we got to do to get there, and everything like that. It's like very impressive, but then also they're like, we have this exact thing that we need for this exact very specific situation on hand. Because also they're generally working with like, oh no, we're on our own because there's ghost protocol or whatever, you know. And I'm like, but you still have access to all this shit, you know. Like
you've got full agency resources,
right? Yeah. But don't get me wrong. I mean, the stuff that they do is really cool, and I love, you know, like their charisma and their ability to like navigate through social situations and problem solve on the fly. I'm like, it's really cool. The action is very fun, but there's also some times where I'm like, we just have this available. Like, here's what we're going to do. I'm like, that's what you're going to do? Like, you're going to have that just readily available to use at a whim. And it's like, okay. And then also, because I watched all this stuff like back to back to back, I'm like, can we also address the fact that your organization's called IMF? Do you know what IMF stands for, Justin?
IMF? Mm-hmm. Like in the Mission Impossible world?
Yeah. The organization he works for, Tom Cruise's character works for, Ethan Hunt works for, is IMF. Do you know what IMF stands for?
Oh, it's like IMF. Isn't it like a Impossible Mission Foundation or something?
Boy, that sounds...
I'm just saying.
I don't know if that sounds better or worse than what... It's Impossible Mission Force.
That's right. I forgot. Like when I heard that in the first film, I'm like, wait, is they referencing something else? Or that can't be... They can't be what... No, they are. Okay, fair enough.
I'm sure that's from the TV show and everything like that. You know, that's what it is. But like,
still,
I'm like, no, just call yourselves IMF. Like, you're MTV. It doesn't stand for anything. You're just MTV. You know, just like you're IMF. Like, don't be like, we're Impossible Mission Force. You know, it's just like, it sounds like all right, 10-year-old Bruce. Thank you.
I was gonna say it sounds like a kids. Saturday morning kids cartoon.
Hey, Kevin, you want to be a part of the Impossible Mission Force? Because we're going to go on a bunch of secret missions to save the world. But watch out. The president's enacted ghost protocol, so we're on our own. Put on your favorite person mask that you want to imitate because we're going deep undercover. And we're going to be running at all times because Tom Cruise is fast. Really fast.
Because he's contractually obligated to run in every film.
I gotta say, dude, I love watching him run.
No one in Hollywood runs like Tom Cruise.
Listen, Tom Cruise has flaws. We all have flaws. Sure. I don't know if I hung out with him regularly, I might be like, this guy is unsettling. But when it comes to making movies, that guy gives it everything he's fucking got. He does not take it easy. He is there every step of the way. He commits with a capital C, and I fucking respect him. And the fact that I watch him sprinting in some of these scenes, I'm like, he's in a fucking suit.
Right.
And maybe dress shoes, like it's supposed to make it seem like it's dress shoes, and this guy's running like all out. I mean, he's going hard. I'm like, God damn, like, well done, sir. Like he doesn't mess around when he's running.
It's funny because he's one of the last of a generation of. That's exactly what he is, Doug. I don't know if you know this, but he was a Civil War hero, and then found his way over to Japan.
That's actually he's one of the few that's reached the last samurai rank in Scientology.
Bet you didn't know that movie was a documentary.
He's like, here's him celebrating. He's like, I fucking got there. I hit the rank. I leveled up. Last samurai, baby. Woo!
Right. If you notice the executive producers on that, it's whatever the guy's name is. I blanked right at the last minute. That's the one. Yeah.
Xenu.
Xanadu. No, he's one of the last of the old guard. I feel like the Hollywood, like it's a breed of movie star that doesn't exist anymore. Like, we've got movie stars, but he is a box office movie star. Like, he's one of those old school, you put him in a film and you're gonna make money at the box office. And I've heard people talk about him in interviews or on podcasts, not in interviews, on podcasts. They're saying a lot of people say that he is one of the last few actors who has the clout to tell the studio how it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like that again, very old guard, old school. This is what it used to be, and he's not many people can tell a studio, no, this is how we're going to do this, and the studio goes, okay, whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
he's
impressive.
got huge producing like strength. Like there's endless stories of him being like, we're gonna do this stunt, and the insurance company's like, no, we're not underwriting that. And he's like, well, you're fucking fired then. And he's like, I'm gonna find an insurance company that will do it because I'm gonna fucking do this. And they're like, okay, yeah, go hang out of a jet. We're not insuring you for that. Okay, like.
Well, he pushed, to keep theater, theater windows, theatrical windows is the word I'm looking for. And again, was able to get away with it because he is who he is. He was able to tell the studio, nope, the movies that I'm doing are going to be X, Y, and Z. And
to be fair, he's been right. Like what he's been promoting. Now, when he stops being right, that power is going to decrease. Like but
he knows the industry. Yeah. Like he's really studied the industry. If you talk to like he used to talk about, and he would on sets when he was younger, he would sit there and he would like study and ask questions, and he would go to each department and familiarize himself with what each department did. And he's really, really has the DNA of cinema, which is kind of cool.
Been in the business his whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just watching the movie Taps the other day. You familiar with that movie at all?
I'm not, no.
It's got it's got a young Sean Penn. It's got Tom Cruise. It's got what's his name? Fuck, I can't remember it.
L. Ron Hubbard.
No. The guy who played Patton. It's got what's his name? Timothy Hutton? I don't know. Anyway, it's got a lot of actors. You're like, oh my God, look at these teenagers in this film.
Sure, yeah.
And Tom Cruise is in that movie.
You're right.
Timothy Hutton. He is phenomenal in that movie. He's like an intimidating teenager, and I watched that recently. That's one of my favorite films. It's a sad movie, but it's a very enjoyable movie. I go through these phases where I really like watching like boarding school movies, like Dead Poets Society.
Really?
Taps. Fucking School Ties. Like, I'm just like, yeah, it's kind of like coming of age, but kids at like boarding schools. And I'm like, I rotate through these same movies where I'm like, I kind of want to watch this. Like, for what? I don't know what it is, but I'm like, yeah, I want to watch a boarding school movie about young boys, What
was the other one? Was it, it wasn't October Sky. It came out right around the same time. It was Michael Caine, wasn't it? It was about a boarding school. Good night, you princes of Maine. You. I'm
not familiar with it.
Quote. Here it is. The fuck is it from? The Cider House Rules.
Have
you seen that one? If you're in your boarding school phase, check out the Cider House Rules.
Nice. Because what happens is I'll watch one of those and then I have to go and watch the other ones. Like that's just what I do.
So one kicks you off, and it's just a path that you must walk. Got it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's something about that age where you're trying to figure yourself out, and a lot of those deal with authority and kids bucking. Actually, all of them deal with authority. Like with Dead Poets Society, it's about kids in this very strict fucking place, and they're trying to follow the rules, but Robin Williams is like, hey, you got to think for yourself. And they're trying to figure out what that means and trying to follow their dreams and whatever. And then School Ties is about a Jewish kid who gets like led into this boarding school that's basically a pipeline to Harvard because he's a good athlete, and how he deals with that, trying to whether or not he admits that he's a Jew or not or whatever, and how people, which I still like, man, when people are like in those movies are like, oh my God, a Jew. And I'm like, I don't get that. Like, I don't get whatever. Like I grew up in racist rural Missouri. I didn't. That's one of those things.
Still didn't hit you.
I didn't know that many Jewish people, and for whatever reason that never stuck. I was always like, I don't understand what the big deal is. Yeah. Someone might be like, I think he's half Jewish. I'm like, okay. What?
Great.
What? Half Methodist? Maybe like it doesn't work like that. I'm like, okay, I don't understand how any of this works. When somebody say like I'm an eighth Jewish, I'm like, what?
Yeah,
I don't know what that means. I don't understand it. But there's that one, and then Taps is about also kids dealing with authority and the idea of what honor is, and bucking authority and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Tom Cruise was in that movie. That was the point. He was young Tom Cruise, and he was great. And the other day there was like a bunch of Apple or iMovies will have sales on stuff. It's like Tom Cruise, best of, and I'm just like scrolling at all these fucking movies that he was in. I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
His list of films is insane. It is absolutely insane.
Absolutely. The thing too is just like there's a lot of classics in there, man.
Oh,
there's so many classic films that he's in, and it's like, god damn, like, so impressive. So
I floated the idea when Drew and I were talking about some stunt casting for Love and Improv. I was like, they always talk about shoot for the moon. So I go to him, I go, well, for Grace's dad, what about Tom Cruise? And he goes, he paused in a perfect amount of time, and he just paused and he goes, you mean the highest grossing box office movie star in the world, Tom Cruise?
He did Tropic Thunder.
Well, that's why I go, well, he's done comedy. And Drew goes, hey man, he goes, hey man, if you can get his agent, you let me know.
Well, step one, get his agent.
Get his agent.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Boy, how scared would you and Drew be if he was like, yes, and you're like, you guys had to direct him?
There's been a few names we floated that I go, man, I don't know if this is a good idea. It'd be great for the film, but I don't think this is a good idea.
Can you imagine having someone like Tom Cruise just be like, you know what, fuck it, I'll do it?
Right. Well, that was my thought, because there are the outside chances that he's like, I don't need the money. I'm not doing anything that weekend. I'll fly to. I'll let them fly me to Chicago.
Believe in this project. I want to be a part of it. And you're like, and he shows up on set. He's like, all right, guys, I read the script. I know my lines. All right,
where do you want me?
Where do you want me? And you're just like,
hey, where do you want to be? What do you think?
Because here's the thing too. Because imagine it being like, is that how you're gonna light it?
Everything that happens on set, I'd be questioning. I wouldn't be paying attention. The only thing I'd be thinking is this real enough for him? Like, are we making this a real enough movie set? Because I don't think it is.
Oh my god, I cannot imagine the diarrhea you guys would have.
With some of the other names, we floated J.K. Simmons, and same thing. I was like, I don't think I could show up to set if he was on set, because I would be way too intimidated to direct him. Michael Shannon was another one. That was gonna be the one
I was gonna say. That guy would be so fucking intense.
We reached out to his agents. We just couldn't. We never heard back from. No, we did hear back. I can't remember what happened. I know we did hear back. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
He wasn't available or something, yada, yada, yada. But that was one of them that we thought, like, can you imagine? That day I was like, Drew, you're going to handle talent that day.
I'm out.
I'm out.
I'm going to have diarrhea that day. Just so exactly. You know, I'm just calling it in. I'm calling in sick. I have explosive diarrhea that day.
Just that scowling, like, what do you want me to do?
Oh, boy. That reminds me of a video I saw recently with Jake Gyllenhaal talking about his performance in October Sky. You mentioned October Sky, and he's acting against, I don't remember the character's, like the actor's name, but he played Conklin in The Bourne Identity. He's been in a lot of films. I don't remember his name.
Yeah. Oh God. Now it's gonna. Yeah. I got it. It's Chris Cooper.
Chris Cooper. Yes. But I haven't seen October Sky. But there's an intense moment between Jake Gyllenhaal and Chris Cooper in that movie where they're like having an argument, and Jake Gyllenhaal goes, I used to think, that being angry just meant shouting, in your scene. He goes, so we do a couple takes, and he goes, man, I am just shouting at this guy, just going at it really hard. And then we cut, and then Chris Cooper goes, what are you doing? And he goes, and my stomach, like, he's like, my heart just dropped, and he's just like, what do you mean? He's like, what are you doing? You're just yelling at me. He's like, listen to the words that I'm saying and let that affect you. And he goes, oh my God, I screwed up. I'm screwing up. Oh my God. But then like the next take, he did that. He pulled back and he's like listening as Chris Cooper's like delivering these lines. He goes, and then I got actually mad. I got actually angry at what he was saying. He goes, and then we were good to go. But I needed someone to be like, what are you doing?
Right.
You're killing me here. You're killing me. Just shouting at me like this isn't working for me, you know?
Bring the volume down so you can hear what I'm actually saying to you and react. Yeah.
You basically just go like, I'm delivering your line and you're going, because that's all you're doing is just shouting. Like that's not what I need from you. And I'm like, I love hearing stories like that.
There was a story. Have you ever seen the movie Marathon Man? It was in the 70s. So. Dustin Hoffman, Sir Laurence Olivier.
No, I don't think so.
There's a scene, a root canal scene that is very, Anyway, there's a story that goes, I don't know if it's true or not, but the story goes that Dustin Hoffman he's a long distance runner in the film, and he's supposed to be out of breath, winded from going for a run. So a couple minutes before he starts sprinting around set as fast as he can. He comes back and he's winded and he's and Laurence Olivier looks at him and goes, what are you doing? And he goes, well, I'm supposed to be winded. I'm long distance running and this and this. He goes, have you tried acting?
You can be like, I'm a method actor. I got to go run a marathon and come back. Have you tried acting?
Have you tried acting?
Oh, there's this really great interview I saw with Tom Hiddleston, who was talking about, I can't remember which movie it was, but it was directed by Spielberg, and he was playing like some sort of military guy that was leading a charge on a horse. And Spielberg goes, how old is your character? He's like 25. He's like, all right, cool. He goes, when the camera starts on this side of your face, I want you to be 25, but by the time we come around to you and look you straight on, he goes, I want you to be a boy. And they showed the scene, like how it happened, and Tom Hiddleston just nailed it. He goes, that was some of the best direction I've ever gotten.
That's
because it changed the way, because he was like, let's do this. And he's like, but then you get the idea that as he's charging, he's like, holy shit, we're charging into battle. And it is an amazing, I'm fascinated by that stuff because
I would love to know what film that is. That's so cool.
I'm sure I could probably find it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out later. Yeah.
But it was so like, oh my God. I'm fascinated by acting because I've tried it and I'm like, I'm sure with more practice I could have gotten better, but the idea of there's a lot of woo-woo stuff that goes into acting that's just like yoga that I can't commit to entirely.
Sure. Yeah.
Because a lot of it's just being vulnerable. And
that's the thing. Yeah. You learn to do it with improv though. Like I feel like if you really wanted to, you would just have to get past that mental barrier. That stops you.
Improv was me hopefully being the butt of a joke. That's where I excelled. I was like, I'm the dummy, or like, I'm angry dad. Those were like my kind of my
Jake
guys.
Gyllenhaal anger.
Exactly. I was like, I get that. I get what he's doing because that's what I did. I'm like, I'm angry and loud. Like it's just, I didn't have a lot of levers to pull. But I'm fascinated because I can understand how emotionally exhausting it must be to do. You see some of these scenes and you're like, Jesus Christ. Like you understand why some people lose their fucking minds doing that craft, because it takes so much out of you. And you just like, you have this very emotional thing and then you hear, cut. All right, everyone back to one. We're going to try this again. It's like, okay, go again, cry. It's like, fuck, like how do you, and that's your job. Your job is not only to know your lines, but also to be like emotionally connected so that in an instant you can get exactly where you need to be, you know?
I've heard some actors talk about how very similar to the story that you relayed, they need that other person. They can get into that emotional state if they have that other person and they're genuinely reacting off the lines that they're being fed, and that they can get that there. And there's some actors who are just like, I can just turn it on. It's like a switch. And it's fascinating to see how it's just the gamut that it spans.
I can't remember. I think it was on one of Tom Segura's podcasts, but someone was talking about how they were on the set with Meryl Streep.
Oh.
And at one point, she goes, can I get a sandwich, please? And everyone's like, Jesus Christ, someone go get Meryl Streep a sandwich. And like people are running around and she goes, what are you doing? It's my line.
That was was it Tom? Because he was on Martin Short and
that's what
Steve
it was.
Martin were on Conan O'Brien.
That's what it was. Yeah, those guys. That's what they were talking about. She was so good. Everyone's just like, "Oh my god!" Like they didn't know that she was acting. It was like Jesus Christ.
And, like when she was walking on stage, she had to, because they were in season 3 of Only Murders in the Building is what she was on. And they're putting on a musical, and so she was walking onto the stage for a number, and she kept tripping over this wire. And Steve Martin Short like, is someone going to take care of this wire? And she's like, no, this is a choice. So she's so natural in how she delivers it that no one knows she's acting.
Yeah, I love that story where it's just like, Jesus Christ, someone save her. You know, it's just like, this is what I'm doing. You know, like, oh, you're so good.
You're so good.
Yeah.
There was like three different versions of that happening on that set, and they were just like, man, this is a masterclass. Yeah, and for them to be able to be wowed by that, you know, it's just it's absolutely incredible.
I will say the opportunity that I have to express any sort of acting chops is in my weekly D&D sessions, which I'm currently doing. Curse of Strahd for any of you D&D nerds out there, and it's been a lot of fun, incredibly stressful at times because this is a very cool pre-written campaign that involves a very awesome villain, Strahd, and I'm trying to play him in a cool way, and it's not easy. And I'm trying to be like, who is this guy?
Let me get into Strahd.
Who is he right now? What would he do? How would he sound? Because he transitions to different things depending on what the players do. Because at first he's just sort of like dismissive, like, I don't really care about you.
Yeah.
I'll come say hello. I'll be kind. I'll be a gentleman. But then as the players progress and do things, he becomes more sinister and he becomes more like authoritarian. And then he becomes like a true monster. And I'm like, fuck, like I got to find a way to get, I'm cool with the first stage.
Right.
Getting to the other stages, it's going to be challenging. But I'm also having fun, like, because this is like, these are all like, Romanian or Russian names like, Victor or Vargas Vlahovic and Yevgeny and Nikolai. But I had this entire town as like, they're all Southern folks. That's how I play them. I was like, hey, welcome to Vlaki. My name's, I'm Baron Vargas Vlahovic, burgomaster of this town. And some of the people are like, hey, man, what are you doing? That's like a guard. I'm like, I'm playing against type.
Oh, I love it.
Strahd could be like, I want to suck your blood. But I'm like, I'm playing him as like Agent Smith from The Matrix. Because also I'm like, I can't keep up that accent, man. It's bad enough as it is.
Thing,
Just like, I'm not an accent guy. So like, some people I can maybe make that work. But I'm like, I know Southern. So this whole town's going to be a bunch of Southern bumpkins. That's what we're going to do. And that's
what we're going to play. The grain so much.
Yeah. I was like, I think it's fun. I was like, yeah, this is a bunch of Southern bumpkins in this town, and that's how they're going to talk. So whenever you're in Vlaki, it's Southern, I get it. It's fun. It's fun stuff.
We're in South Vlaki.
Welcome to South Vlaki. What can I get you, You want a wolf steak? All right. That'll be 2 gold pieces, please. God damn it.
You want some barbecue sauce on that?
You want some barbecue sauce on this thing? But we've been having an absolute blast. Just getting into shit and watching the gang just totally get into their characters. And the last session, I just kind of sat down for like 30 minutes and just listened to them role play with each other. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just listening to you all. They're like asking each other questions as characters and like trying to be like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'm like, this is fucking awesome. And then like I had a scene with one of the characters as one of the other characters. It was like going back and forth, and I had so much fun doing that because I know what's going on. That's the hardest part for me is like I know everything that's going on and they don't.
Trying not to lead them.
And I was like, I tell them, I'm like, I want nothing more than just to give you everything, but I have to pull back and be like, no, I have to let you earn it. I can't just tell you what it is. And they're in a big quest hub right now, so they're just getting inundated with all these things that they can do, and they're like, fuck, what do we do? And I'm like, by the way, you triggered something else because you did this, so here's other stuff. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, I know.
Just overwhelmed.
But you fucked up, so we got to do this now. But I say all that because D&D has been so much fun for me in the short amount of time that I've played it. And I found this amazing article from Vice called, I originally heard this on the Philip DeFranco show, but it was called, it's Dragons in the Department of Corrections. And in Colorado's maximum security prison, they use Dungeons and Dragons, the inmates do, to collaborate and exercise their creativity. And I found this to be absolutely fascinating because this is the last place I would expect anybody to be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I did not think this article was going to go the way it went. I thought it was going to be like, there was this Dungeons and Dragons game going on, and then the word got around, and now they're all dead.
Yeah.
Like, I did not think that it was going to be so well received, and that the inmates, according to this article, of all different religions and gang affiliations and races and like people who in prison generally might be at each other's throats, sit down at this table and they're halflings and they're orcs and they're barbarians and that's it. Like there's all these other things fall away and they are there with each other, and it's fucking fascinating.
It's amazing to me because if this is such a thing that I think nowadays it's becoming much more acceptable.
Oh yeah,
to do this. But even in like that prison setting, I can't imagine anyone be like, "Hey man, you want to come play Dungeons and Dragons?" And like, "You want me to do what?" It's like you can pretend to be whatever you want, and they're like,
right.
"Yeah, man, fucking sign me up." Like I'll be there. Like the fuck.
Well, there's that tale in here about the one dude who didn't see eye to eye with him.
Yeah,
kept trying to ruin the game.
Yeah, so it goes in here that this guy, this dungeon master, they said they only get like exactly 3 hours, like at a time to like of group time. He goes, that doesn't, that encompassing that is like showers, whatever. He's like, so they had a very specific window of time to play their game, and this guy would always come by and taunt them and give them shit and interrupt the game. And it got to the point where one day he couldn't take it anymore, and he's like, "I told you to quit messing with us while we're playing our game," and he jabbed his pencil in the bully's thigh multiple times. He's like, "God damn it, I'm trying to play!" And he just stabbed this guy. Where he got put in solitary for that.
Needless to say.
Yeah. But I found this interesting because not only are the players able to suspend whatever, the prison sort of like social laws and rules are, meaning like, two rival factions of gangs or people who are of different skin color or people who are of different faith, they literally put that aside and come down and play this game, and they're totally cool. Like that's the unwritten rules. Like while you're here, we're playing this game, and it helps them escape. Like this is such a great escape from everything. And they mentioned multiple times, like the bravado of prison is exhausting. And in this game, they can escape that and they can be something entirely else. Like whatever they want to be, they can be that. And I found that so incredible that it's even possible that people even take to this in prison.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to find where it says here, but he currently plays a female halfling, and he dons a high-pitched tone, clearly offers a... Oh, never mind. Yeah, he pitch shifts his voice, like he talks in a higher voice, and like totally role plays a female character without any fear of repercussion or anything like that. And from his fellow inmates, I think this quote is perfect. He says, "When you're in a setting like prison where so much depends on bravado, to sit down and play a game that has the word fairy anywhere in it takes a certain self-confidence that I think demands respect." And you know what? That's fair. Like if I see some dudes sitting around a table and they're playing this in prison, I would probably look at them and go, those dudes don't give a shit. Yeah. Those are not the kind of guys you want to go fuck around with.
Right. Yeah. Obviously because they'll stab you in the thigh with a pencil.
Exactly. They don't give a shit.
And it's interesting because some of these, like in some of these situations, like the guards are very supportive of it as well, where like they'll print out materials for them, maps, things like that. And sometimes they'll just hang out and watch as they play, which I think is very supportive. But it's also interesting because they're not allowed dice in prison.
When I saw that, I was wondering how they got around it. And I thought it's an ingenious solution.
Yeah, there's several different ways that they do it. I mean, I was hearing that, like, they have paper clip on a piece of paper that has numbers written, and they spin it, and wherever it lands is what it is. Sometimes it's just straight up they get sheets of paper, put them in a cup, and you just randomly draw out of it. Because dice, it's like, gambling most of the time. So they're like, yeah, you can't have those, can't have that shit here. So they get very creative, just like most prison ingenuity is. They get very creative to find ways to roll the dice for whatever situation they're going through, which I found fascinating.
The one that they talked about in here that I thought was really interesting was they use a set of 20 playing cards to make rolls. And I'm like, that's, again, fucking use what you got, right? Again, so you're not only are you stretching your imagination and you're being creative and you're coming up with story and narrative, you're also having to invent and get around limitations that you have in order to play this game. And it really at the end of the article, it starts to talk about how this can be used for almost rehab and helping people kind of figure out, one person says that to help explore their mental dungeons and slay their psychic dragons, like figure out what it is that they're repressing, what it is that they're not addressing, and they can figure it out through this game because they don't have to be themselves. They can use this character, they can use this, this other entity through which to speak and get this out. It's I've never thought about it as a form of therapy, but it's brilliant for that. It absolutely is brilliant.
Yeah, it's really, it makes sense because you can play characters who are basically get put in these moral situations, and you can be like, based on my character, like, how are they going to respond? Are they a lawful good person like me all the time? Where they're going to try and do the right thing? Or are they more like chaotic good, where they're more selfish, but still good? Are they just pure neutral? Are they an evil character? Which I'd argue you have to be, in my opinion, an advanced player to play an evil character, because if you're a noob, most people are like, I'm going to be evil. I'm like, you don't realize how disruptive this is going to be to everything, because also to be an interesting evil character requires a lot of skill. Yeah. Because if you're going to just be like, mwahaha, then just fucking be in Rampage and be the villains in that movie, okay? Because that's basically what they were. Yeah. But can you be an interesting evil character that has, I think lawful evil is the most interesting evil character for me, because that's like a Darth Vader, who Darth Vader believes in a rule of law in his mind. He has like a set of, he has an ideology that he follows. He believes that order is important and everything like that. Is like, he's fascinating. He's evil, does terrible things, but he follows kind of like a set of laws. And I find those people, the chaotic evil ones, are difficult because those people are just like the Joker. Yeah. And he's interesting, but boy, it's difficult to be like, how do you tell a fun story with a chaotic evil person who's incredibly selfish and evil? Like, good luck. And if you're starting this game out, I'm like, I'm a chaotic evil guy. It's like, why are you going to be with this group of anybody? Like, why would you even? Right. You'd be a lone wolf, probably. Like, the Joker doesn't team up with people that much. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. Yeah. And when he does, he usually ends up fucking them over.
Right. For good reason. Like, they may do a quick, like, truce, but they're like, I don't trust this guy because he's always up to something. Yeah.
What I did in that vein, though, another thing I found very interesting was that a lot of these players in prison ended up siding with people who are lawful good, which was very fascinating. And it makes you kind of wonder, like, what is it that they're processing, going through, that you're in prison, you did something wrong, but you are aligned from a character perspective with lawful good. Is it something that you're interested in? Is it something that you feel is your truth, and you just got caught up in something that you weren't able to get out of in the moment, and that's what landed you in prison? Like, it opens up such an interesting line of questioning.
I think it also sheds a little bit of light on the idea of redemption. And listen, there are some real bad people in prison, right? That should probably be there. The super murderers, the sexual assaulters and things like that. There's people that are mentally broken that could probably use some mental help and also should not be with society. Sure. There's also people that are like, yeah, I fucked up, and I made a mistake, and I think it's a flawed logic to be like anyone who's in prison is evil.
Right. Oh God, that's an absolutely flawed logic.
Yeah, but a lot of people think that. They're like, oh, you're in prison. Right. You must have done something wrong. You're a bad guy. It's like, I don't know. There's room for nuance in that sort of situation. So I find it interesting that people, in this world, they can be a hero, Right. And I think that is always an attractive thing, to be the hero and to be the main character and to save the day, to work together to solve problems. And who doesn't? That's why we like watching movies. That's why we like reading books. We want to hear these, I watched Creed 3 today. I knew how it was going to end before I even watched it. I knew what was going to happen because it's a Rocky movie, like, what's going to happen. And I'm okay with that. I know, like, that's why I'm watching this. I'm watching this, we're going to start high. We're going to dip low. We're going to do a training montage. We're going to have an intense fight and he's going to win. And we're going to be like, yeah. That's why we watch these movies. And it could be something similar with this where you're like, it's more random because you have dice involved, but it's like there's chance of like, am I going to succeed this or whatever and whatnot. But the idea of like, I'm going to try and overcome these obstacles with some of these other people who are probably sharing some similar life circumstances or like maybe moral conundrums in their own life. What a great opportunity to bond. And to do this sort of stuff. And one of the things I found very funny is like some of the like supervisors of the prison are like, no to this because they're drawing maps and shit. And they think they're like basically trying to collaborate on a way to get out of prison, to break out of prison. They're like, what's with these maps? They're like, this is a map of the Sword Coast. This is Tribor. The Beaver King of Tribor lives here. It's like
it's just a bunch of nerds and they're plotting a prison break.
To be fair, the ingenuity of prison is legendary, and someone would be like, "Oh, we're just playing. Yeah, I'm playing D&D too. How the fuck we get out now? It's like, how we getting out of here?
This campaign is about people who escaped this dungeon underneath.
Well, that's the thing is like also they're like they don't typically play those types of campaigns. They're not doing prison breaks or whatever. Because they're like, I'm in prison. I don't want to think about being in prison or trying to break out of prison. I want to be somewhere completely else. Different.
I want to be in the Feywild and let me be running free in a weird world.
Yeah, I want to have wild magic coursing through my veins, so when I rage, anything can happen.
Bingo. They just want to be Ash Fallbreaker. That's all it is.
Ash Fallbreaker. I this is just my opportunity to say, if you have not tried Dungeons & Dragons, if you're curious about Dungeons & Dragons, ask me questions. Find a place. It's so easy to play Dungeons & Dragons these days, but I will say two things. One, make sure you make time in your schedule. Time is the biggest killer of campaigns. And two, make sure you find a good group of people to play with because the bad group of people can ruin your experience forever. But it is incredibly accessible. If you're curious and kind of want to see what it's like, check out the game Baldur's Gate 3 that's based in the world of D&D, and there's a lot of D&D elements to it, which are a lot of fun that could kind of dip your toes into this world of D&D and see whether or not you like it. But it's so much fun. I love it so much. I'm glad it's a part of my life. And I don't have anyone in my house to talk to about it because Jill does not give a shit. I had such a fun session on Sunday. I'm like trying to explain it to her, and she's like, has her book on her chest, like, I was reading when you came in here, right? And you're telling me all about this town of Valaki, St. Andrew's Church, like, okay, I'm glad. Her thing is like, I'm glad you're having fun. That's like her. Like,
when we were doing ours, I would go downstairs all the time, and Beth would afterwards, and she'd go, "Did you win?" And I'd be like, "Thank you for asking. That's bless you." Yeah.
There's times where Natalie would be like, "Oh my God, we gotta go tell Mom this." I go, "Mom loves us, Natalie, but Mom does not care." Yeah. She does not care about anything that just transpired. I care, you care. She's happy for us, but she doesn't need to know the details. Like, oh, Mom, guess what I just did in this game? Like, she doesn't care. She doesn't care. She loves us, but she doesn't care.
Yeah.
She'll come up and be like, great job, guys. But she doesn't need to know the details.
She'll support us, but she doesn't care.
She's happy for us, but
exactly
does not want to know the full story.
It's a very practical response, if you will.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got the questions, we got the answers. All you do is ask. Practical, 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 practical. Ask Practical Doug.
So if you haven't been here for Practical Doug before, where the fuck have you been?
That's what I was going to say.
Come on. Practical Doug is a small Doug that lives inside of Large Doug and guides Large Doug in all of through all of life's quandaries, its quagmires, its questions, its mysteries. And if you want to get an answer from Practical Doug, if you want to ask Practical Doug, any social media, @MindGapPodcast and #AskPracticalDoug. When I say any social media, you can do it on X, but we're not on there. So not any social media.
MindGapPodcast@gmail.com, Instagram, TikTok. There we go.
There you go. Those are the ones. Or you can join our Discord where there's a channel dedicated and set aside for all things Practical Doug. And if you do a really good question, you might get on the show. Today, we're going back to the well that runneth over, the Am I the Asshole subreddit. And so today, Douglas, Flat Blueberry 4469.
Heads up, this one's a little long.
This is a winner.
But I think it's worth it. Okay. So everyone, protect your butts. We're getting into it.
I need to drink some tea and honey with reading this. So Flat Blueberry 4469 asks, "Am I the asshole for abandoning my daughter on vacation?"
See, these titles are incredibly misleading sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, I don't know if I want to read this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I do. This one's good.
They go on to say, "My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation. Just the two of us, reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now, and we're excited beyond words. Enter our adult daughter, Jane. Jane and her husband got wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children, a 9-year-old female and a 5-year-old male, along. I originally put my foot down and told them this trip was just for us, which upset her some. But my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane, as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I want to make my family happy, and I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip, even though she was heartbroken we wouldn't get our romantic trip. We went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive, family-friendly resort. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane ticket. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. Here's where things get complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans.
Butt sex.
Bingo. My wife and I may not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something we always wanted to do. So without consulting...
Sorry. That's the last one. Sorry.
No, I'm expecting one more. They come in 3s. That's what she said. So without consulting anyone, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. Real quick. And this might be covered. I haven't read ahead. But all-inclusives, I didn't think that it was that easy to get a refund on them. Switching tickets and shit. That's impressive that they pulled it off.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't necessarily say you got a refund.
So, all right. I did not tell Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was a day
First of
before.
all, that's some Chris Cochran energy right there.
Oh,
that's some real Chris
so.
Cochran energy
Very
of
much.
like, I'm going to do this and not tell you until it's too late.
Right. Didn't even tell them before our flight left, which was the day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision, and I feel guilty about it. But I wanted our 40th anniversary to be the special, intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her she was extremely upset, to say the least. She seemed of the idea that we were going to look after our grandkids so she and her husband could have alone time, and now that I abandoned her, they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started shouting, and my wife and I enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back the same day we did, but have not answered any of our texts, and Jane seems to be ignoring me. My wife told me she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants me to apologize. I'm not sure I want to after learning Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I feel like I should just to keep the peace. Am I the asshole for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves?
It's so funny. I had my mind made up on this, but now as you told it, like I feel like I've changed. I think I've switched my position on this.
All right, let's hear it.
So because there's a lot of, it's like Natalie's doing some math problems now where they're like, hey, here's a math problem, but we're teaching you that not all this stuff is relevant to the main question at hand.
Sure, okay.
It'd be like, Dan has 13 coins and his sister has 5. His mom's birthday is on the 3rd of July. How many coins do they have together? You're like, what? Like it's very simplistic. I feel like that's the case here where there's a lot of details that don't get at the core of the very basic situation of what's going on here. There's ancillary things that you can maybe look at by itself, but at the core of this, let's break down what happened. This guy and his wife were going on their 40th anniversary trip. They wanted to go on their own to a very specific place. Their daughter kind of self-invited herself or encouraged them or influenced them to include them. He agreed. They booked everything. And then shortly before the trip, he changed everything in secret and didn't tell anyone until the day before. And then he and his wife went on their own trip, and their daughter went on their own trip, and then everyone's mad.
Right.
Now, the superfluous details are, I found out that my daughter wanted us to watch the kids so that they could have their own thing. Like, listen, if that's true, that's shitty, okay?
Right.
Is it shitty that his daughter kind of like invited herself in, a lack of self-awareness of like, it's a 40th wedding anniversary trip, I'm going to invite myself in. That sucks. I think that's shitty of her to do that. But this guy made a unilateral decision on his own, made adjustments, didn't tell anybody, and then just did his own thing.
Right.
That to me reeks of cowardice.
Yeah.
That's a Chris Cochran move to pull some shit like that. And I'm glad, because at the core of this, I agree with him. I'm like, you should enjoy your 40th wedding anniversary. Do what you want to do.
Absolutely.
But also have the courage to tell your daughter no.
Right.
And he blames it on his wife, being like, she's too soft, but you did it anyway.
Yeah.
You did it anyway, and you make it seem like she's like, I'm so happy you did that for us. It's like, you can't have a fucking conversation with your wife and your daughter to be like, hey, this is for us, okay? You go on your own vacation, all right? This is our 40th wedding anniversary. We get one of these. We've been playing this for a while. This is our thing. I'm glad you want to spend time with us. I'll see you at Christmas. But we're doing this for ourselves now. And we don't want you, I love you, but this is just for us. Have that difficult, crucial conversation. Don't switch shit at the last second and then be like, I hung up on them because they were yelling at me. Well, no shit.
Right.
They were expecting that you were going to be there. Now, whether or not it was to watch the kids is irrelevant. The expectation is that you were all going on a family trip together, and then you were like, nah, just kidding. We're in a different place. Have fun. And I'm sure his thing is like, well, we still paid for it. That's not the point. The point is you switched it up the last second and didn't tell anybody. That's a bitch move.
Right.
You're an asshole.
Well, I think the thing that's the kicker for me is where was it? We called Jane after we landed to tell her. It's not even like we told her a day. I waited the day before, and that like we called Jane when we landed and said, "Oh, by the way, we're not going to be there tomorrow.
By the way, we're in a different geographical location than you."
Exactly. The general, the very, very baseline thing here of Jane hijacking this is bullshit. Jane is an asshole for doing that. Like, to start.
Absolutely.
The daughter is an asshole for doing that to start. I originally put my foot down. My wife has a hard time saying no to Jane. She's the youngest. Again, that should have been a conversation between Flat Blueberry 4469 and his wife. And they should have squared that away to start with. Or when you get, if it's coming as it draws nearer, like, and you were having them second thoughts, like you said, then sit down. There were multiple points, either at the very beginning when the idea was first floated, or anywhere along the timeline between then when the tickets were booked and when the actual trip happened. That conversation could have happened. Anywhere in there, that conversation could have happened, or multiple conversations could happen. Some sort of a compromise could have been reached, something. To pull that is an asshole move. I understand. I'll say this. I understand why he did it. Mm-hmm. I empathize with why he did it, but it was an asshole move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was an asshole for doing that. Because that's not like how he signs it off. Like, am I asshole for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves?
Right.
That implies that he doesn't think they can handle anything on their own. I don't like how he's like, by the way, I paid for all this. That's an irrelevant detail.
Right.
That's a Chris Cochran guilt trip thing. That's like, they're not being grateful.
Yeah.
They can't plan for this themselves. They can't afford this. Maybe that's true.
Right.
Based on my baggage and my family history, that sounds like a fucking power play. That sounds like you are looking down on your children, that they can't fend for themselves.
Right.
And that whatever, like, those are details that tell me a lot about who this person is.
Yeah.
And this is a move where it's like, it's a power move that is absolutely him being an asshole, because he doesn't have, I'm assuming he's the same age as my parents, and so I'm assuming in a lot of ways too, he doesn't have the communication skills. Obviously doesn't have the communication skills to sit down and have a fucking conversation. Instead, he takes drastic measures which just torch relationships.
Right.
So, and I'm with you. I agree with him. Jane is a dick for inviting herself and her family into their that shouldn't be a thing.
No.
They shouldn't have even considered that. That's a dick move to do that.
Yeah.
But to be like, I don't have the courage to have a conversation with anybody. And by the way, we had the best time. Again, I feel like my mom wrote this. She's being like, your father and I we had the best year of our life. Did you?
Yeah.
Did you have the best year of your life alone in Kirksville, Missouri, surrounded by 9 cats that are just pissing all over your house? You have no friends. Was it the best year of your life? Or are you just trying to project that semblance of strength as if that, like, everything's hunky-dory over here? We all know it's not. All right? We all know it's not. So just be like, we had so much fun. It's like, okay, congrats. You're an asshole.
You doing okay, Doug?
I'm doing great. Fucking great. Doing fucking great, man. My new approach to my family situation is now, here on out, pure sarcasm.
All right. I love it.
People don't know the details. I'm having trouble with my parents. Haven't spoke to them, and it's coming up on a year now. Zero. And
It sounds horrible because you're doing this. I'm laughing my ass up over here.
It's funny though.
From an outside perspective, this sounds horrendous. If you knew all the details, anyone listening,
listen,
you would 100%.
All you need to know is that I've tried to talk to them and they won't talk to me. So I've done everything I can. I'm cool, but I've also realized they're not going to change.
Yeah,
they're in their mid to late 70s. They are stuck in their ways. So instead of taking this situation seriously, I'm going to take a comedic approach to it.
There you go.
And I have ideas. I have all sorts of ideas on how to possibly poke the bear and have fun with it, because what else am I going to do? Right. So
we're going to talk off mic about that.
Yeah.
But as far as this goes, it is decided the asshole.
You're the asshole, pal.
You're the asshole, pal.
Yeah. All right. Justin, what do you got to recommend this week?
So there's a new series on Apple TV Plus called Lessons in Chemistry. It's based off a novel of the same name, stars Brie Larson and Lewis Pullman, which Bill Pullman's son, didn't realize he had a son.
Neither did I. Jill was talking about this because she's a voracious reader, and she talked about how she wants to watch this show.
2 episodes are out. 3rd is coming out this Friday. I don't know how many are in the season, but so far, big fan. I think it's pretty good. So I will be continuing this, and I say jump on board early, and don't get left behind. The Lessons in Chemistry train. It's synopsis: in the 50s, Elizabeth Zott's dreams of becoming a scientist is challenged by society that says women belong in the domestic sphere. So she accepts a job on a TV cooking show and sets out to teach a nation of housewives way more than recipes. Basically, she teaches them how to cook with science. And
she teaches them how to cook with sex.
With sex.
It teaches them more than cooking.
Fucking hot.
Whoa.
Yeah. No, it's really good. The chemistry between Brie Larson and Lewis Pullman is really, it's great. I like the two of them as joint protagonists. So
cool.
Yeah.
According to the internet, there's going to be 8 episodes. So
well, there you go. And I'll be curious to see, since it's based on a book, I'll be curious to see if there's a season 2. Yeah. So far, first 2 episodes, very cool. I also think that we will be seeing a potential Emmy nod for art department and set deck. It's really, I mean, obviously it's set in the 50s. They did a really good job with this. So I'm very much, from a filmmaking visual standpoint, really enjoying this.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. What do you got, Dougie?
Some of you may not know this, but Blink-182 has a new album coming out this week. And I'm very excited about it. Blink-182 is one of my favorite bands of all times. And they've been releasing, they don't really, nowadays with music stuff, it's like they release several tracks off the album before it drops, which I'm all here for. And some of the songs like just probably aren't my jam, but they have a song out called Dance With Me. And I've been listening to it on repeat. And it is like a perfect amalgamation of like classic Blink-182 and also some of their newer stuff. And I played it for Natalie and I played it for Jill. I played it for Natalie. I go, hey, I dare you not to dance to this song because it has got such a catchy fucking chorus that I'm like, oh my God, this song would be amazing live. I just imagine everyone singing along and everything like that. And Natalie just starts hearing it and she goes, Dad, my butt's moving and I can't stop it. And she starts like dancing. And then before I know it, like we're all just running around the house dancing to it. And then I'll just sing the chorus. I sing the chorus to Jill and she's like, fuck you. Now that's stuck in my head. I'm like, you're welcome.
I love it. I'll have to check this song out.
Dance With Me by Blink-182. I believe their album, I think they said is coming out on the 20th. Sometime this week it's coming out. So I'm looking forward to checking out the whole album and I'll give you all an update as soon as it comes out. But you can check out Dance With Me now on YouTube, Spotify, all that good stuff. So check it out.
There you go. So wait, Blink-182 releases an album. First one in a long time, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Right around the same time that the Rolling Stones released their first album in like 18 years. Mm-hmm. Coincidence?
No.
Probably.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, all 3 of them are back. Tom DeLonge's back in the band and everything. So
right. That's, again, we're talking, is one of the tracks about aliens?
Not that I know of yet, but, we'll find out.
I'll be sorely disappointed if it's not.
I mean, they have an old song about aliens called Aliens Exist. That's off of their Enema of the State album. So it goes way back.
They needed a new, more unhinged version of that.
Right? It's called I Told You So. It goes, I told you so. 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 Hey, gang, did you know you can find us?
Real drastic departure from their sound.
Yeah, you can find us on all our social medias at Mind and Gap Podcast. Again, all those social medias are Instagram, TikTok, Threads, technically. We don't really check it that often. And you can email us, mindgappodcast@gmail.com for all that good stuff. Check out the links in the description down below for Discord. Join our family there. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/mindgappodcast, and our merch at merchbubble.com. Also, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/mindgappodcast. If you're just listening to this, you can actually watch these episodes on YouTube. You can also see all of our clips. I also live stream, usually on Fridays and or Saturdays. I think a new Jackbox comes out this week, so we may be doing a new Jackbox.
Nice.
This week, so that should be fun. But yeah, we tend to just have a good time, grand old time. Come hang out with us. We love to have you around. And be sure to check out Justin online as well.
On Instagram at Justin_Michael, spelled Mikel. It's a fun way of spelling it. And while you're in the online realm, check us out on any platform where you can find and consume podcasts. While you're on there, share, subscribe, rate, review, like, all those things. And 2east8th.com, 2east8th on all social media, loveandimprovfilm.com, loveandimprovfilm on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, Justin, this has been a delight. Thank you so much.
Douglas, I feel the same way, and thank you.
Awesome. And to our listeners and to our viewers, thank you so much. We love you. Have a dandy fucking week.
Mind